Have you ever been asked to prove your worth, not just in words, but in action? To show up, deliver, perform, to bring something of value to the table? That's the kind of pressure St. Lawrence faced in the year 258. The Roman authorities demanded he hand over the treasure of the church. They expected gold, relics, sacred vessels, maybe even scrolls, or financial records. Instead, Lawrence showed up the next day with the poor, the crippled, the blind, the sick, and the outcast. He looked the empire in the eye and said, "This is the church's treasure." Rome was a world of power and prestige. To them, treasure meant tangible wealth assets you could seize, store, and control. So when they demanded the church's riches, they expected a transaction. But God had something far more subversive in mind, because the Church of Jesus Christ was never meant to be about gold, thrones, or marble pillars. It was always meant to be about people, especially the ones the world refuses to see. St. Lawrence remembered that, and in honoring the poor, he honored the heart of Christ. If we're going to understand what St. Lawrence was doing, we have to go back to Jesus. Jesus never praised wealth. He praised the widow who gave 2 coins. He praised the child who came with open hands. He praised the beggar who cried out for mercy. And in Matthew 25, he makes it explicit. Whatever you did for the least of these, the hungry, the naked, the prisoner, the sick, you did for me. In other words, you'll find me in the broken ones. That's where I live. That's where my kingdom is being built. If we want to find God, we don't need to look in cathedrals or conference halls. We need to look in nursing homes, shelters, rehab centers, and lonely hearts. That's where the treasure is. Let's make this real. Who is the church's treasure in your world? Is it the single mom sitting in the back row, trying not to cry? The teenager questioning their worth because their dad never came home? The old man on the corner with cardboard signs we pretend not to see? The depressed woman who serves every Sunday and nobody knows is on medication just to get out of bed? Yes, them. And maybe it's also you. Maybe you're the one who's been convinced you don't have value. Maybe you've been told out loud or in silence that your pain is too much, that your mess disqualifies you, that your struggles are inconvenient to the church. But let me tell you what God says. You are not a burden. You are not disposable. You are the church's treasure. Somewhere along the way, we got distracted. We made ministry about buildings, brands, and production value. We thought treasure meant attendance numbers or viral videos. We celebrated those who look polished and overlooked those who were perishing. But here's what Jesus said to the religious elite in Luke 11. You clean the outside of the cup, but inside you are full of greed and wickedness. Like, it's not wrong to have excellence, but if we ignore the hurting while polishing the platform, we've missed the point. The church is not a stage. It's a refuge, not a museum for saints, but a hospital for the broken. What if we really believed what St. Lawrence said? What if the church stopped chasing admiration and started embracing affliction? What if we stopped asking, how do we grow? And started asking, who's being left behind? What if we saw the poor, the hurting, the addicts, the single moms, the immigrants, the lonely, and the misfits, not as charity projects, but as sacred treasure? Because that's how Jesus sees them, not as problems to be fixed, but as vessels of divine beauty, as mirrors of his own suffering and resurrection. Let's pause. It's easy to think about how the church treats others, but how do you treat yourself? Do you see yourself as someone God would cherish, or someone barely tolerated? Do you believe you are a vital part of the body or just dragging behind? Here's what Scripture says. We have this treasure in jars of clay. You may be fragile, you may be cracked, but you carry treasure inside you, and God is not ashamed of your mess. He is building His kingdom through it. So now what? What do we do with this truth? We become a church that guards the treasure. We look for those the world forgets. We listen to those who've been silenced. We sit with those who mourn. We feed, clothe, and care, not because it makes us holy, but because it reveals who God already is. When we do this, we don't just reflect Jesus. We become the church He envisioned, the one He died for, the one He's still building, the one that shines not because of its walls, but because of its heart. When St. Lawrence brought the poor before the empire, he was saying, "You want to see what matters to God? Look here." Can the world say that about us? When people look at your life, do they see someone who values what Jesus values? When people enter your church, do they feel treasured or tolerated? When the broken cross your path, do they leave carrying shame or hope? Let's be the people who answer, "This is the church's treasure." Not with words, but with love. If this message spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to know they still matter. And if you've been feeling discarded, forgotten, or too broken, please hear this. You are the church's treasure, and Jesus sees you. Subscribe for more faith-building messages. Comment below. I am God's treasure if you're ready to believe it.